Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are today. I'm Ashton from Catalyst Campus, and here at CCTI, we've been hosting a series of webinars with Platform One, covering what is Platform One, their products, and some about the commercialization efforts. Today's webinar is what is Big Bang Instance and who should use it? Speaking today is the Big Bang Value Stream Lead, Captain Ryan Thompson. And before we begin, I just want to remind you to go ahead and use the Q&A feature in Zoom to ask any questions that you have along the way. We will not be monitoring chat for any questions, so go ahead and use the Q&A feature. And then once again, this webinar is going to be recorded. The link will be sent out via email to all of you participants after today. And then also it'll be hosted on our YouTube channel at Catalyst Campus. So that's it for me. Go ahead, Captain Ryan Thompson. Share your screen and take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Hopefully you all can see my screen at this point. So as introduced, Captain Ryan Thompson, the Big Bang Value Stream Lead, and happy Friday. So I'm happy and honored to be here in order to represent the entire rest of the Big Bang team. By no means am I the one doing all the great work within Big Bang, and it's the developers on the team who are really doing all the efforts day in and day out. And they're the ones who provide value into Big Bang. And hopefully by answering the question of what is Big Bang and who should use it, you will start to see where that value is that we provide and have a better understanding, as well as determining whether or not it's right for you to use. So first and foremost, Big Bang is an orchestrated service mesh of hardened iron bank containers that instantiate an opinionated DevSecOps reference architecture to accelerate secure continuous delivery. Excellent, I just read a definition. But the real question is, what does that mean? Let's break that apart. So first and foremost, the orchestrated service mesh of hardened containers. Big Bang is a Helm chart of Helm charts, and it's deployed with Flux. And that's done in order to stand up a secure platform. As you can see on the image here, it stands on top of the infrastructure that is ultimately the customer responsibility and sits kind of in that middle bit, on top of which third-party or additional apps can be deployed on top of it, depending what your end use case is. The service mesh part is particularly key because that's key to a continuous authority to operate, or CATO, because that's what enables that zero trust architecture. Now, going further through that definition, we see opinionated. Not all apps that exist in the world are a part of this. It's been down selected based on what's been determined to be needed in order to create that secure platform, but there is still options within that based on what the end use case may be. And then ultimately, Big Bang itself exists to provide that value to customers. We are customer obsessed. We see what is coming in, what the requests are, where the needs are, and we try to see where we can best fit in to build this platform that gets the most value to the most people as possible to enable that continuous delivery, continuous integration. And so what does Big Bang itself look like? Big Bang itself is part of a universe. We like to see it as multiple pieces that build upon each other. So as I showed on the previous slide, the infrastructure comes in the first place as built by the customer or end user, and then Big Bang gets deployed on top of it. The Helm chart and Flux rolling things out in an appropriate fashion. But at the very core of it is our core packages, down at the bottom, the foundation. The core provides the requisite components to achieve that continuous authority to operate through the required observability, logging, monitoring, policy enforcement, runtime security, service mesh, as well as authentication, authorization, encryption, in transit across it. It builds that strong foundational framework for everything else to come on top of. That's where the real value comes from. Our team spends a lot of time continuing to make sure that this is as robust as possible and continuously improves. We build upon what our current risk posture is to continue to advance it. And we do that so that way you, as a hopeful end user, don't have to worry about that. And you can focus more on the add-ons, and even more so, the Big Bang Talk community maintained packages, or whatever packages you may want to deploy on top of it. So as I mentioned, those add-on packages, those are things that we also include as part of Big Bang. Those are additional options. I said that it was opinionated in the fact that in Big Bang Core, we have default options turned on for things such as logging and monitoring, policy enforcement, but we also include other options. Maybe what the default is doesn't work in your use case. So that's where some of those add-ons come into play. But in addition to giving you some of the collaboration and development tools that are necessary for many of our end users. Now, with Big Bang Core, most things there being default and enabled, I did want to throw a few caveats in this place. Caverna, while it is not in beta, it does have its policies in beta, and we're looking towards shifting towards that becoming the default and moving OPA Gatekeeper to an add-on state in the future, as well as our PLG stack is currently in beta and showing in the Big Bang Core as a opposite to Elastic. But once that does get fully fleshed out of beta, it'll be moving up as well. Big Bang itself is not stagnant by any stretch. We follow an agile process and as such continuously evolve and move based on customer requirements, as well as the changing landscape of the rest of CNCF, which kind of gets us to the Big Bang TOC, or the Technical Oversight Committee. These are packages that the users get together and come to this meeting that we have to kind of share, discuss ideas, discuss what their use cases are. Really, everything that's outside of Big Bang. How are you leveraging and getting the most use out of it? But also, what do you need to be a part of it? The Big Bang team's only so big, and we cannot maintain everything that all end users may want, but the TOC provides an avenue for end users to get things into there that are then maintained by the rest of the community. It very closely mirrors the CNCF process with Sandbox, Incubating, and Graduated, and we eat our own dog food on Big Bang. Not only do we run our pipelines and do test deployments within our own Big Bang, but we also are getting our own apps and everything through core and add-ons through the Big Bang TOC as well to get them all to that graduated status. Because we do truly believe that this needs to be more of a culture shift rather than we own it to the community owns it. And so just wanted to give a little bit more information on where we're going. You know, you saw some of the things that are already there and what we currently have sort of built up, but it's much more than that. I said that we're constantly evolving and changing. And so here is the Big Bang roadmap. 2 points of note. This is as of March 2022, and this is approximate. Things constantly change and adjust as we continue to move forward. But one of the things that's almost the most important on this slide is something that's very small and almost easy to overlook. There's a line that stretches across the middle, a blue arrow. It says expand adoption of common DSO platform and continuously improve zero trust security posture. Every single day, more CVEs are coming out. And it's not saying, here's a new CVE, let's go check the box. But this is also evaluating everything that's out there. What's new? Where's changing? Where can we further improve ourselves in order to make sure that this truly does have value as being a trusted platform that people can take, use, and leverage, focusing on their own mission apps or end use case. So some of the things that we're working on across the board, these are things that customers are asking for, or we see value in this to provide to customers and end users because we've experienced maybe some of these pains ourselves internally. And so by sourcing the larger community and having interviews with customers, we've been able to come and flesh out. Now, this isn't granular. These are some of the big ideas that we're trying to push through in order to continue to develop and make Big Bang as useful as possible. And so some of the things I really want to highlight here is scaling adoption through resellers. As we try to get this to continue to grow and turn into more of a community supported thing, there's only so much growth that we can do internally, and we don't want to be a limitation. We want everybody, if they have an interest, to be able to get access to this. That's why Big Bang is open sourced. And while not necessarily everything within core is currently open sourced, that's on our roadmap. And hopefully within the next 3 months or so, we will get to that point where there is an open source option. Now, it may not be the option that has all the features or functionality that you want or that your use case needs, but at least it's there for anybody to be able to use and consume. Looking further out, SBOM, NIST mappings. I've said a lot and discussed it with this platform. It's built off of that trust and built off of having that secure foundation in order to enable everything else. Security is not hard, or is hard. It's not easy. And so that's why we want to bring in a lot of experts on our team and do that for you, so that way you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to go find those experts and have a very large team in order to build every aspect of this platform up yourself. We can give something that you can consume and use that, but also something you can contribute back to as well if you do have improvements or things that you wish to see added in. But the SBOM and NIST mappings is something we want to provide with releases. Security in the ATOs is a collective look as far as not only what you're using and what the risks inherently are that, but also how are you using it? Some CVEs may be completely null and void based on the use case or based on the architecture that it's deployed within. And so it's important to truly take a look at what you're consuming and how you're ending up using that. And so one thing we want to do is continue to provide that transparency to our end users, so that way they understand what they're truly getting when they take on Big Bang. And then also I highlighted the Expand Big Bang Technical Oversight Committee. It's something that we're continuing to grow and continuing to figure out where it's going and what makes the most sense to benefit the largest user base that we can get it out to. How it collects all the requirements from people, but the one part that is fairly fleshed out is how do we get things to a graduated status for those community supported add-ons. And even further in the future, we're looking at enterprise air gap. Enterprise is a bit of a strange word in this case, but Big Bang currently supports air gap. We have many customers that currently use it in that fashion, and we continue to support them in that way, but it could always be better. And so we continue to strive towards finding what is that next best step. How do we continue to make that more robust and make it easier for the end user to go ahead and consume that and get it started up? While internally we have the experts who can understand and debug when things go bad, maybe not our end users have some of that same level or depth of expertise. And so we want to make it as easy to consume on the user end as possible. And even further out, this is looking at edge deployment. This goes beyond, Big Bang is a platform tied in a cloud or something like this. These are fringe cases. How do we build Big Bang to be a common platform that stretches across, so that way you have constant environments between your development as well as your deployment, wherever that may be? And so hopefully this gives a better view as far as the things that Big Bang values and Big Bang is working towards in order to continue to address what we've gotten from the community as far as different things that they would like to see added within. And so it gets us to a question of who should use Big Bang. I had to think a little bit when starting to build this presentation and go, well, that's difficult to answer. I can tell you what the use cases are that we see currently with software factories, a secure environment to deploy mission applications, and being used as a zero trust platform. All those are perfectly valid. We see users from DoD, government, defense contractors, and even commercial companies. Also truly excellent. But who should use it? Big Bang itself was not built with a single user in mind. It was built to be modular. It was built to be reusable, so that way it could be taken and expanded upon for however that end user would like to be used. Some people really do have the absolute need for a CATO. Others don't. And in that case, you can turn things off and customize it through configuration as code through Big Bang in order to make sure that it then deploys the way that you want it to, and you can leverage the parts or pieces that are truly of most value to you. Big Bang itself was built upon more of the culture and the culture shift that we are trying to provide through the Air Force and the DoD, as which we're a part of, but also this is the bigger culture shift that's going on in technology. This is looking at how do we continuously adapt and shift as we need to be able to quickly transition in order to meet the speed at which things are changing in the world around us. It's about collaboration and us open sourcing this to enable to foster that across a larger user base, not just internally, not to stovepipe it. One size does not fit all for Big Bang. Party Bus is one instantiation of Big Bang, and it's an opinionated stack, and all users of Party Bus get that same copy-paste structure. It's fantastic, it's great, and it brings that CATO and makes that process to get there very quick and easy. We like to equate it to the easy button when you need to stand something up quickly. But because it does have that opinionations to it, it doesn't necessarily work for all end users. And so that way, the thought is too, it also helps people who don't understand the way that this kind of new environment and new landscape works with Kubernetes and platforms, and it helps them get their feet wet, get them underneath them, get them up to speed, so that way then they can transition to their own Big Bang deployment and truly begin to expand into the full capabilities that can provide. But also, it's a platform service. It enables rapid application of cross-platform, cross-environment portability. This is truly groundbreaking in the way that it's deployed and implemented across the Air Force and DoD, and more people externally are catching on and finding value in this. Going to other conferences, we've heard from different vendors or even commercial companies saying, hey, we found so much value in this that we've adopted it internally. And that's fantastic. And I can't even tell you all the end use cases of people who are truly going after and trying to embrace this culture change and find value in this, because it is open source. It has legs of its own and goes to end places that we probably will never know about. I'd be very interested to hear every aspect and every use case that it's being applied, because I'm sure some of them go way beyond what we could even imagine. And it's very exciting to see that Big Bang itself is still fairly young, and it's still continuing to develop and grow. And as it does grow, the user base and use cases continue to expand. And from there, the possibilities are almost endless, especially with community involvement and feeding in. It can become bigger and bigger and address more of the use cases that people would want it to become. But solely as ourselves, we can't do that. And so thus, we call on the community to continue to be a part of this. Hopefully you do find value in this and are willing to be a part of this. And if so, we'd be happy for you to reach out and find ways to contribute back, to become adopters, or find ways to use it on your own. And so with that, I will open it up for any questions that you may have today.
It looks like we have one question in Q&A. Sent anonymously. Is there any documentation on how to deploy Big Bang on, say, a local VM if I want to learn it before spending dollars on a cloud account?
Yes, the documentation does exist in ways to go ahead and deploy it out. That sits alongside the, it all sits within our repo one, which is open to everybody. And so you can go in there, look through the documentations. I believe there's a quick start guide, which walks you through the process of going about it. And you can deploy it on something locally if you desire.
All right. Did you see the second one?
I did. So describing
Awesome.
how Party Bus works with Big Bang. So for Big Bang, we see Party Bus as our first and one of our biggest customers. It's all internal to P1, but they are direct users of Big Bang. They take what we provide in Big Bang, which builds upon what our cloud native access point or CNAP provides, which builds upon what Iron Bank provides. And with that, we package those and provide them to Party Bus, which then internally takes that, sets the default standards that they want to use based on what we have defined to meet our CATO, in order to then deploy that and provide that to customers, so that way they then can inherit that through reciprocity. So there is very close collaboration with Party Bus, and some of those add-on packages are things that especially users within the Party Bus environment want, which is part of why we then continue to provide those as part of the larger Big Bang offering. All right, the next one I'm seeing here is, what classification levels does Big Bang support? Are there any plans to cross-domain capabilities? Big Bang itself can be deployed on anything you want it to. I can tell you right now, it's deployed on everything from IL2 all the way up to much higher levels of deployment. Within the Big Bang team itself, we stay a little bit outside of that directly, but that's so we can focus on keeping it open source. But we do engage with them to help them with deployments, whether it be IL5, 6, et cetera. So it does go to much higher levels and cross-domain in that sense. All right, looking at the quick start guide, see docs are part of the roadmap. How can I see what's coming with respect to docs? All right. So documentation, it's not always the most fun thing to do, but it's something that's critically important. It's important to enabling the end user in order to make sure that it's almost the first line of self-help. So as part of this, what we're doing is multiple approaches. First, we're providing new documentation as far as Istio and the service mesh. So that way the end users are more aware of what it is, what it does, and how to configure it based on their setup. Another thing that's a part of documentation we're working on is how to do blue-green deployment, or how do you maintain upgrades? It's a common point that we've gotten from some of our customers of upgrading is too hard. How do we make this easier? So we're trying to make sure that we address some of those first. Another effort that we're going down is cleaning up our documentation. Currently, our documentation sits in a documentation folder. There's also our charter folder, various quick starts, templates, and then also in each package, there's documentation as well. It's very dispersed. And so right now we have recently, within the last couple of weeks, put together a script that goes out, scrapes that all together, packages it in a way that it can be deployed as a static site. And so we're looking to deploying that as a static site that will then post the link within our Big Bang repository, so that way you can access it and find value from it there if you have connection from an online status. But that doesn't work for everybody, right? For people who are air gap or edge deployment, you may not have that connectivity. So we're looking at ways that we can get that static site packaged and deployed so it can then become and deployed alongside your Big Bang deployment if it is in an air gap or that. So you do have continuous access to documentation in a state. And we've also engaged with the tech writers at Platform One to go through and scrub our documentation to clean it up, make it more readable, as well as consistent across everything, and just taking care of some of that tech debt in some of our documentation. So hopefully that answered your question there. Next, minimum hardware requirements for a simple Big Bang deployment. I wish I had a good answer for you offhand, but that's not numbers that I have directly memorized. But it also, I hate to use this answer, but it depends. If you want to deploy Big Bang with everything, including Elastic and all the different apps within core, it's going to require more than if you use a very reduced, slimmed down version. It also greatly depends on how much scalability you want and how many and what your end case is. So unfortunately, I don't have a much better answer to answer that question right now. I do know there are some minimum hardware requirements listed within our documentation, and I'd be able to provide those as a follow-up later on. All right, we have a DAO that seems to be risk adverse. How do you work with DAOs to bring them on board to a zero risk construct? So it's hard. And this is very much a change in the way that a lot of people are used to. And what we do the most is continue to inform people and to try to make people aware. Before, when everything was a checkbox exercise, just because you're checking a box does not mean that you're secure. It gives a false sense of security. And so we're continuing to engage people and try to get them to understand that it's a lot more than just a box checking exercise. And this zero trust construct that we're going through and how this is formulated provides value in ways that maybe previous structures with checking boxes doesn't get after. Just because there's a patch doesn't mean that it's a critical patch that must be installed today, or maybe it is. But we have the flexibility in order to assess that risk and intentionally think through it and react appropriately in order to provide that better security construct. Unfortunately, we can't necessarily change the thoughts and opinions of everybody, but as we do begin, we are expanding, and through the We Believe memo and others, we're building that coalition of the willing and the coalition of the people who see this is the way that we need to go, and there is value here. And so through that, we hope that we can continue to grow and sort of change some of that risk adverse posture and turn it into a risk focused, where we're focusing on that risk and minimizing it to the best that we can and putting appropriate thought towards it. I know that's a very difficult question, and I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully that provided at least a little bit of information there. If we deploy Big Bang in our company environment and want to use commercial components like Fortify, do we have to purchase the licenses? Yes, if you are using Big Bang in your own company environment and you want to use something that has a license, you need to purchase your own license. Big Bang does not provide licenses for the end user. Is there an application of Big Bang that you're aware of that you found particularly unique or for a use case you did not expect? There's plenty, not all that I can say here, but there are some really interesting use cases, and some within the DoD, but some stretching way beyond that. I mean, there's even some banking companies that have found value between Iron Bank and Big Bang and have leveraged it there. There are a lot of tools in Big Bang. Do you provide or coordinate technical training, or are you expecting the users to get training on their own? So from that, we're trying to improve our documentation to serve as a good foundation for some of that training. As far as coordinating technical training, we're looking into how we improve the usability of our website and provide access to that, or maybe access to good links that we will recommend. We try to be as unopinionated as possible when it comes to this. But there is a certain amount of use cases that we do expect the users to go out and get some of their own training on. Things within Big Bang Core itself, we try to make sure that we have that incredibly well documented. When it comes to things external to Big Bang Core and those supported add-ons interfacing with it, that then starts to become in that realm that's outside of our core foundation. But we're always happy to help address questions or answers or issues that could be posted to our repo on Repo One, and get back to you if there is something particularly that you're looking for there. Does Big Bang provide software factory functionality, static code analysis, dependency checking, container scanning? So customers can use it to build mission application software. So yes, I believe that some of the supported add-ons, I'm just going to flip back and look here for myself just to verify. Yes. So some of the developer tools such as SonarQube do provide some of those features that you ask here, but there's more that we're looking on our roadmap as far as including within Big Bang and continuing to involve in that. So yes, and we do have several software factories or several organizations using Big Bang as their own software factory that do take full advantage of the tools that we have currently provided within the Big Bang add-ons. It sounds like Big Bang is not a hardware solution. Is there a preferred hardware platform that can be used? No, we try to be completely agnostic, and the infrastructure, Big Bang should be able to run on any infrastructure. Now, I can say that we do only test it on one particular sort of infrastructure, and that's what we have it deployed on within our own dog food cluster. But we acknowledge that that's not completely sufficient in satisfying the need for all of our customer base. We're currently looking at exploring how do we get other Kubernetes distributions, as well as other environments and other infrastructures as a part of this that we can loop in as part of our pipelines in order to check out Big Bang on top of that and spin it out and give a sort of compatibility check, if you will, to make sure that it does spin up appropriately and properly without any issue on these other distributions. Now that just gives further confidence to our end users who may be wishing to use something different than us. But we try to be fully agnostic as far as that side is concerned. So I did try to deploy a single node example using Zarf on a private machine, but the deployment breaks partway through the K3S setup. Without actually contributing to the Big Bang project, where can we get answers to the questions, problems when they arise? So I'm glad that you're looking into Zarf and to some of these other possibilities for deploying. That is a community tool that we are collaborating with as we see benefit in using that for some of these cases. So without actually contributing, if using Zarf and the question relies with Zarf, that may be a question for them or for engagement on their GitHub site. I know that they do have a question and answer section on there. And that itself may be a little bit more outside the scope of what the Big Bang team happens to deal with on a particularly daily basis. We also have, I don't know if you have access to our IL2 Mattermost, but there is a channel on there that you can go in and engage with. It's a value stream channel for all of Big Bang. It's completely open. And so people will post various questions on there. We do ask that those are very short questions, as that's not a, it's also built for community support too. So other people can help each other. That's not necessarily a help desk or a means to get to the help desk. So those would be some of the first two areas. And then also on the P1.mil website, there are links for email addresses there if you can't get to any of those other places that I described. How are the control mappings going to be provided? All right, so we're looking at providing those control mappings in a couple of different formats. I believe Exacta and Cyclone DX are two that we're possibly exploring right now. But those are artifacts that we're going to be providing along with the Big Bang release itself. The DAO doesn't accept Big Bang. Does the Big Bang team help with the ATO process? Spoke about education, but require more assistance. Yes, so we try to help first and foremost through reciprocity and try to leverage that as much as possible. Also, the NIST mappings that we're working on providing is one of those direct things that we're trying to help as far as leveraging that. But yes, our customer basis, especially across the Air Force and DoD, we do engage with them, whether they come directly to us or they acquire Big Bang through a different channel. If they come in contact with us, we will do what we can to provide more assistance to them, because ultimately, if the customers are successful in finding value in this, then we are successful. And so if you are running into roadblocks, you can reach out and we will do what we can to help there. Seems like the quick start guide is for installing a test instance of Big Bang. Is there other documentation available outside the quick start guide for installing Big Bang? So yes, it's for a test, but similar to the quick start guide is the developer guide. And between the developer environment guide and our quick start guide, that's what our developers on Big Bang use to build out their own environments that they are testing upgrades and things of that sort. I do believe that there is additional information and documentation that is being worked on to kind of handle that day 2 type operation. That was something that was originally handled internally with the Big Bang integration team. And as we continue to evolve and focus on scaling, it's something that we're trying to document and make sure that we get out there as well. Can you describe the key characteristics of Big Bang that support DevSecOps? Yes, so we inherently embrace DevSecOps, and that's the way that we operate within our team already, with continuously developing, deploying, getting to ops. Now, in Big Bang, we don't have a production deployment ourselves. That's where Party Bus more so comes to play for us, and we get feedback from that aspect. But what it does is Big Bang enables that DevSecOps, right? It's in line with the DevSecOps reference architecture, and we see that as kind of our Northern Star. That's what we follow in order to kind of get guidance as far as what we're trying to build out, how we're trying to architect this, so that way the end users, especially software factories, can get value from this and have their own DevSecOps. Some of our end users take it to then build it out, so that way they have then different environments where they have a Big Bang deployment with then Big Bang deployments underneath it that the larger ones maintaining, where they have their own dev and prod, and they have developers that are continuously pushing through that. And that's what some of those add-ons provide too, right? With GitLab and even some of the Big Bang supported ones, because I know that there's Argo CD and Jenkins is a part of this, where you can quickly expand this to turn it into that DevSecOps and grow it to what you need it to be. Again, there's no one size fits all. And what we try to do with Big Bang is make sure that it's modular and reusable. So that way, what you can do is take the pieces that are most advantageous for your use case and deploy it in that fashion. For some of the software factories that I'm speaking of and thinking of here, not all of them are using all the same apps within it, and they're not all using it the same way, but all are absolutely perfectly valid based on what they want. But what we provide is truly value is that zero trust environment and enabling that secure platform in which all of that other DevSecOps can take place on top of, with rapidly developing on top of it and deploying those applications that they need to get out based on the mission. If we use Party Bus, which is a user of Big Bang, then do we avoid the licensing cost issues? The assumption is that our government customer sponsors us for Party Bus. Who pays it? So when you use Party Bus's opinionated instantiation does use some of use apps that are license-based. And so when paying for Party Bus, part of that payment is for those license costs already. So that is included within Party Bus in what is provided. But outside of that, if you're taking Big Bang on your own to go run it in your own cluster, those licenses would then be on you. So not being completely familiar with software factories, how is Big Bang different from a software factory? Or what is the relationship between a software factory and Big Bang? So Big Bang sometimes is referred to as a software factory in a box. It comes complete with a lot of the apps and a lot of the pieces already in place. Now, for a software factory, if you think of developing software, especially in some of the newer mindsets with CI/CD and pipelines and all of that stuff, as part of what you're trying to ultimately build out, there's several different apps that are a part of that. And while you can take your own environment, bring each of those apps in individually, stitch them all together, configure them, and then you have to go ahead and start operating, you absolutely can do that. Now, what Big Bang does is it goes through, and one of the most powerful things is with Istio acting as that service mesh across, is it has all the ingress, egress, and limitations as far as what trusts what and where that security lies, in order to make sure that there aren't things that are reaching out in other places, or you can't escape from certain pods into other things. And that's where some of the true value comes from Big Bang to enable that software factory as part of it, because it already comes pre-installed with all of that sort of configured, so that way the end user doesn't have to go ahead, or software factory in this case has to go ahead and build all that out themselves. Now, it is configuration as code, and you can add whatever you want to it in order to meet your use case. And so that's incredibly powerful in itself. And so many end users do add policies or add other aspects to it in order to meet their end case. But hopefully that extrapolates more so on what you're asking for there. Is there a site that tells us the cost of Party Bus? I don't believe that there is a site that tells you all the costs of Party Bus, and Party Bus, excuse me, quotes are built based upon tech evals or discussions with the customer to understand what they're truly getting after and what they truly need, because the costing is based off of what you need. You may not need everything, or you may need a lot of stuff. You may have certain requirements that are not part of the Big Bang standard offering and go outside of that. Now, I will say that on the Platform One website that is public facing, there is a Party Bus catalog, and that does discuss all the different offerings that Party Bus does have within it. And I would encourage you to go take a look at that and see what kind of offerings are a part of that. How does Big Bang interact with normal IT services, AD, DNS, et cetera? The assumption that AD and user account controls would be a big factor in zero trust. So some of that is handled internally within our policy controls, but we also work very closely with our cyber team that's also in-house to Platform One to make sure that within Big Bang as a product and as a platform, what we provide within scope is in best practices with the community as well as within the cyber community. I believe part of what you're trying to get after here as well, as far as how it interacts with that, is stuff that's best documented in the NIST mappings that we're working towards providing, and saying exactly what parts are provided underneath Big Bang, and which parts are not provided under Big Bang, some of which will fall under the infrastructure requirement that is that base that Big Bang is built on top of, and other parts of that are then the responsibility of the mission apps or what is being tied to it.
Does anyone have any other questions that we could answer today? That was a hot round of questions. So very good. Thank you so much to our attendees for asking all those wonderful questions. Okay, one just came through.
So ultimately the ATO portion is a combination of Big Bang and user controls. Yes. Again, the ATO itself is an all-encompassing look around risk. Not only the risk surrounding each individual component you're consuming, but the risk involving in how you're using it. If you take something that's inherently risky and has all these vulnerabilities that the internet can see into it, yada, yada, but you go ahead and you put it on a standalone item that's not connected to the internet, is it really a vulnerability to you? Well, no. That just doesn't make sense. So you have to evaluate all of that together in order to determine, and that's what AOs do when building out whether or not to award an ATO, looking at all of that risk. Now within Big Bang, we're trying to provide as much documentation and information that we can to help that end user get to an ATO. And so we are trying to engage with our customer base currently that do have ATOs and see what is the most value to you. What are your AOs looking for? We know that we cannot provide everything that every individual AO may want. Unfortunately, we just don't have the full bandwidth to do that, but we can see what's similar across that. And we also look internally. What are we providing and what are the different body of evidence that we're providing in order to get and maintain our ATO? And so with that, we're trying to provide that. And also reciprocity is a big part of that as well. End users can get access to see what our CATO looks like. We can provide that across to other Air Force and DoD entities so that way they can get an idea and build upon it or see how their end case may differ from ours and know exactly what to look with. But we internally within Big Bang are not giving out ATOs. That's not part of what we do. If Big Bang is used, are there licensing costs with the tools as a product is released into production? So Big Bang itself, I believe as it currently sits, Twistlock and Elastic, I believe, are the two within Big Bang Core that require a license. With bringing on a PLG stack, that's another option for fully open source. And we're also exploring other avenues outside of Twistlock or an alternative that we can provide along with Twistlock to truly make it open source where there wouldn't be any licensing costs. But with Big Bang, there are no licensing costs with Big Bang. So it depends on what you use and depends on what you want to use. Some of these applications within here don't have or licensing costs for some of the base features, but more advanced features do have licensing costs. And so it's upon you and upon your use cases to explore some of that. Some of that information is documented within the Big Bang documentation. How does a commercial application get secured through Big Bang? E.g., we don't want to share our source code. Do you have a CI/CD pipeline for that process? Currently, no. Currently, our approach to having another app added into either Big Bang Core add-ons or even that Big Bang technical oversight community maintained packages, one of the prerequisites is that it becomes a part of Iron Bank. And as part of that, the source code needs to be provided so that way it can be scanned and hardened as part of that hardening process for the containers that then is consumed. So a process for something that the source code is not shared is not something that we currently have available. We know it's something that does exist, and so we're trying to look into potential options, but at this point in time, I don't have more information than that. Will the release of the new DoD CATO memo guidance affect the Big Bang CATO process? So I would say the Big Bang CATO process, again, that's looking at that production and deployed environment. And so Party Bus, being an instantiation of Big Bang, has a CATO, and even with the release of that memo, everything that we are already doing within Party Bus and consuming Big Bang is in agreement. And we are going to likely not be affected at all by that. If there is anything that we can further improve, of course, we're going to do that. We're constantly looking towards improve and making that better. But as far as getting a CATO from Big Bang, it's still absolutely something that can be done. And that's ultimately one of the biggest value propositions of using Big Bang, right? That we realize that the end users, whether it be Party Bus or whether it be another Air Force or DoD entity, or even commercial, may have that desire for that CATO. And that's something that we are continuously trying to work towards making sure we're providing and making it easier for that end user in order to get that. Of course, we can't guarantee everything, and we can be as open and transparent as possible, but there is still some work on that end user to get and maintain their own CATO. But that's a big part of why we're looking towards SBOMs and our NIST mappings and providing those as part of the body of evidence with the releases. So that way the end users can consume that to help build out their own CATOs. Will the slides and recordings be available? Yes, I will get a copy of PDF of these slides out to everybody, or I believe Catalyst Campus will. I'll provide it to them to get out, and they'll also be providing a link to the recording.
Do we have any last questions from the attendees? We have about 7 minutes left. Otherwise, we can wrap up early. It just looks like there's a big thank you from all of our attendees who asked questions. So thank you so much.
Hey guys, I'm gonna...
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank everybody for even attending today too. You all showing up shows that there's the interest in understanding what is Big Bang and how it can be used and leveraged. And that means that you're at least interested in wanting to be part of this big collaboration and this change in the culture shift. And so we appreciate it. And again, from the entire Big Bang team, we greatly appreciate your attendance today and helping to further spread, hopefully, some of the goodness that Big Bang does have to offer.
Awesome. So I just want to say one more time, thank you so much, Captain Thompson, for presenting today and taking all these wonderful questions from our attendees. Just so you guys know, once again, we are going to be dispersing the recordings through email. You'll have a follow-up from us with also the slides. And then we are anticipating our next webinars to be focused on Iron Bank, DevSecOps environments, and leveraging Platform One. So stay tuned, and updates will be announced to participants via email and on Catalyst Campus social platforms. Let's see. And then I'm going to drop in the chat our YouTube channel so you can see any previous recordings that we have. And this is where this one will also live. So any final words, or are we good today?
I just opened up the chat for the first time, and I just want to also say thank you to everybody in Platform One and on the Big Bang team who are helping answer questions and getting the information out there. I do greatly appreciate that as well.
Same from Catalyst Campus. We really appreciate you, Platform One team. So thank you so much for your support today of us and Captain Thompson. And thank you again to attendees. I think we're going to wrap 5 minutes early. So you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll hopefully see you at the next one. Bye for now.